Passed. Thank you, AT. And now, now for something totally different. We are talking Recovery Office, so May, Nick, Tanya's not here, or she was, no. And the Deputy Mayor is moving, bang off, and Alf, are you seconding? Oh, okay. Right, Alf and Lotu, sorry Desley, they were up first. Okay. Okay, gentlemen.
Kia ora mai tātou, Mr Chair and Councillors. Good to be with you today, and something completely different for us. We do have some roading involved here, but not transport. So the purpose of the report today is to provide you with an update. We'll get to the first page. But just a reminder, really, this program is the quarterly report back of the program and progress around the 2023 weather events, although there's a few other things to talk about. Most significantly, in terms of our progress around particularly the buyout program, we are now 57% at the end of April in terms of the buyout offers settled. And you'll see there's incremental progress there in terms of sale and purchase agreements instructed, accepted, and valuations communicated with homeowners who are considering those valuations. So we're on target to have all sale and purchase agreements in place, certainly by the end of this year. We know the largest period of time is that period when homeowners and families are considering the offer and how they're going to move on from intolerable risk to life. In terms of transport repairs, Auckland Transport are 90% through the repairs across the network, and there's details in the report, Mr Chairman and members. There still are road closures in parts of the region, but those are relatively few, and the priority roads are being opened up as to make sure people can get to work and school in those key areas. That program will largely be completed by the end of June. There's some minor works to carry on after that. 23 communities are completing flood recovery planning, so that is proactively going out into communities on the back of the work Auckland Emergency Management have done around response and readiness. How do they recover from events, and what is their preference? The other thing we're asking you today, Mr Chairman, is, and we'll go to the next slide later, but the other thing we're asking you today is around updating the political advisory group terms of reference, and that provides an opportunity for us to feed in. But I just wanted to, and my apologies, I have Nick Vigar here from Healthy Waters and Flood Resilience, and just to discuss the Easter storm, because that was a significant event, but not as significant perhaps as 2023. Kia ora, Nick.
Kia ora, Chair, kia ora, Councillors. Just a couple of slides here. We were anticipating possibly a few questions following the Easter storms. So just a couple of images here. First of all, just to give you some sort of context here. The image on the right is an image you might have seen before. That's from the 2023 Auckland Anniversary event. The pink here is telling us that it's broadly what we call a 100-year event, which, don't worry about it, it's a big event. You can see on the left-hand side of there the event, a similar image for the event that hit over Easter. You can immediately see it's a much more localised event. So broadly at areas like Coatesville, Birkdale, also hit areas like Wesley and the Upper Foe catchment reasonably hard. So the point of these images was to point out that in terms of intensity, in many senses it was similar to the event that we had, but the difference is really, first of all, in terms of scale across the region, and second of all, this was a much more short, sharp, intense event. So we got overland flow issues in particular. Didn't have the big, long 24-hour of rainfall leading up to it. So whilst we saw some flooding, and I've talked to quite a few people who have been flooded, it was possibly sort of a different subset of flooding, if you will. And if we could just move to the next slide. This is just a couple of images. So this is indicating how much rain fell over a particular duration of these two storms. The yellow one is from 2023. The red one below, in the left-hand image, the red one is the recent storm. You can see it rose more quickly, but then ceased reasonably immediately. The image on the right is just a blow-up of the one on the left, but broadly what it's showing is that for those short durations, this was a more intense storm than the one of a couple of years ago. Having met with some of the residents, having seen some of the impacts, I think what we're seeing is more overland flow type issues, less around the floodplains in the lower part of those streams, those awa. And I'll leave that there.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, on those storms that impacted communities on the 19th of April, for the Mount Roskill area in particular, which did have that sort of intense impact, there were 80 stormwater call-outs, 9 reports of habitable floor flooding, and 16 rapid building assessments the following day. And then so about 12 referrals through to our recovery navigation service, and we've taken on that responsibility and to support families through that. What it did confirm was that the categorisation process, the right houses have been identified as Category 3 and Category 2P. I'm also pleased to report since that time a number of settlements have occurred, and there's 22 in the pipeline right now for the total Category 3 in Poketupapa, for instance, of 129 properties through that local board area, and some of the adjacent local boards, Albert Eden, 179 as well. So good progress being made to give communities relief from the impacts of flooding, noting that these types of events are something that is going to be upon us in an unstable climate period, and how we adapt and become more resilient to those from an infrastructure point of view is critical. The only other thing I'd draw your attention to is just the expenditure. So our expenditure is on track, particularly for buyouts, and our recovery from the Crown through the funding agreement is going well across transport, across the buyout program, and the resilience program as well. The last thing I really just wanted to acknowledge was the blessing that occurred for the commencement of works in Māngere for Te Arata and Harangia. That's a significant step forward in terms of seeing that resilience, those resilience works get in place, and I think my colleague Craig McElroy has promised to have that all completed by within 12 months. So, I'm looking forward to that. The other works are also design works are continuing in Ranui, Clover Drive, and across the Wairau Valley as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So first question, Desley.
Yeah, I've got a comment, so can you put me down for comments later? But my first question, apart from saying you've done an amazing job, thank you, and I'll say a bit more in my comments why I think you've done an amazing job, but I do note, we know why you've been set up, right? And we know that you're planning on disestablishing the Recovery Office next year. So my question is that if we are aware that these events are going to continue to occur, are we sure that the Recovery Office as an office is something that should be disestablished? I know that it was set up around this and the funding, etc. for that, but are we sure that that's a wise thing to do, or should we potentially keep it in its current form, looking at ways to work with AEM or whatever as a result of what may or hopefully may not, but I don't think may not's the option, occur in the future?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So firstly, we are going to be reporting back to you on a lessons learned program. So, and some of that we've been able to engage with some of you. So thank you very much for that, with local boards, people impacted and our own staff. And part of that lessons learned, what we are seeing emerge is some needs for some more residual capability, given that the unstable climate period we're in and the need to build resilience. And also working with central government around the National Climate Adaptation Plan, seeing what the direction from central government would be, but we will be reporting back to you, I'm sure, about the options that you may have, and then into the LTP for any decision making on funding.
So thanks for that. And then I don't know whether my question should be to Barry or to you, but in the interest of trying to find 7 million somewhere, if you were to be disestablished, is that an option? What do we know about the savings that would occur if it happened?
Oh, thank you, Deputy Chair. Yes, so we've actually budgeted in the next year and also in the LTP for the bringing back into BAU of the Recovery Office, and I think so that there is no savings there as such, because that's how it's budgeted for. I think just following on from Mace's comments before, one of the things out of this will come out in the lessons learned exercise is how to establish a group like this very quickly with the skills that are required to do it. So we can gear up and then as time goes on, gear back down to BAU.
God loves a trier. Okay, thanks. And I reserve my right to have a comment later. Thanks.
Chris Fletcher.
Oh, thank you. As you are aware, this is an open agenda, so I'm posing my question on the basis of those. Thank you for highlighting what took place in Mount Roskill, because we have a lot of people that are really traumatised by that. And again, we look at weather forecasts for tomorrow and people are re-traumatised. But the feedback that I've had, and I need you to answer, in the recommendations about changing terms of reference, there is a fear that by extending the ability to the group to make recommendations to the relevant committee rather than just the governing body, there is a fear by some in Mount Roskill that we're going to take the importance and the attention away. You know, by coming to the governing body, it recognises the important status of what's occurring within that community. And I would not want anyone to feel that in any way are we diminishing the traumatic experiences and the need for ongoing work here. So do you want to just briefly comment to that?
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. The purpose of suggesting the change in the terms of reference is to broaden the ability for the political advisory group to request committees do particular pieces of work according to their delegations. But I'm sure with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor on that group going to the governing body in the case of a significant issue that required funding or urgent decision, I'm sure that option would be one that they would consider.
What this query that I've had really reiterates for me the importance of communication and that there is different communication that is coming forward, and the importance of when we do go into the community that we have clear messaging. So I'd like you to just reflect on that. The second question I've got, and it's arisen today from the New Zealand Herald actually, I've been looking at the Kāinga Ora sell-off of those parts of Sandringham which I know were quite badly impacted during the anniversary weekend floods. Have you had any communication directly with Kāinga Ora over these properties, and can you give us any guidance on any liabilities that might be carried on them?
Through Mr Chairman, thank you, Councillor Fletcher. We are in regular contact with Kāinga Ora, and I know they have assessed their properties using the methodology that we had established for their own purposes, so I'm confident about that. I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics around those particular properties. The only assurance I can provide is that any development of those properties would need to run through the regulatory process, but I can further ask and get clarity myself.
I would appreciate it if you can come back to me. It's on the website and you can zoom in and you can see exactly where in dark green those properties are that you and I have walked past on a number of occasions. So it would be interesting to get your perspective on that. That's all I have at this stage, other than to say that we have made much more progress from my perspective since Mace has been leading this body of work.
Thank you. Billy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the update as well. In response to feedback from mana whenua expressing the need for local level involvement, the Council is actively supporting iwi to lead and deliver recovery plans for their rohe and participate in project development. Will the Eke Panuku selection development policy that enables mana whenua the right of first refusal inform the proposed storm-affected land use policy?
Thank you, Member Brown. Through Mr. Chairman, I can circulate to the policy development, but these are fee simple properties, and the policy direction to staff has been to maximise return for purchase. However, we are reaching out to ngā mana whenua entities in Tamaki Makaurau and providing those opportunities for any interest in those properties from a commercial point of view, for example, where it's safe to do so, so giving preference to those parties.
Yeah, I understand. We've been kept informed throughout the development of the storm-affected land use policy. How are Māori perspectives shaping decisions on land use from council retained green spaces and community resilience?
Thanks for the question. So we do have a number of iwi who have received funding through a competitive process amongst iwi to develop recovery plans, and so that's really going to be a key perspective to inform that, as well as the ongoing engagement of particular iwi who is expressing that interest. We also have community partners where iwi have been involved across the region at delivering into communities and providing that perspective back into the Recovery Office. One of those examples, not so much for future use of land, has been our procurement approach, and that's where we've got a number of Māori entities actually delivering where we've got procurement options out there.
Ka pai, thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Richard?
Thanks, Chair. And before I ask my question, just a comment. Luke in the back there, it's his birthday, and sympathies to him for having to sit here all day listening to us. But happy birthday, Luke.
What a gift.
Just the first question, and thanks that if I could be sent, or all of us be sent those slides, that data is super important. I was messaging Julie in the middle of the night that at Easter, because it felt very much like that night, and I posted a picture of the Auckland Council rainfall data. When the reds are in a perfect line, it kind of moves outwards. So it's and I didn't quite know how close it was, but those numbers in that first hour, if they'd continued, we would have had another 2023. So it shows how vulnerable we are. Now my question is on that feedback, and we got a little bit, but not as much as Councillor Ferry and Fletcher have had, because as it moved from above my house, it moved above theirs pretty hard. How are we getting the comments out to the public as kindly as possible? Because it seems like there wasn't a lot of risk to life situations, and that's the buyout. Like, how do we refresh in people's eyes that horrible kind of line that we've set, is that we were never buying out flooded homes. We were buying out homes where there was a risk to life. And I think there's been a bit of, well, now I've had a bit of flooding, I deserve a buyout. And of course, we'd love to do that, but the threshold, I mean, 2,500 people have missed out on the current process. But as this continues, how can we get that out there in a kind of respectful way?
Councillor, I'll go first on that one. I think the first thing is that in the wake of these events, there's inevitably multiple streams of contact and communication. So some people reach out to council, some people reach out to the fire brigade, some people reach out to the operational part, some people reach out to the political part, different board members, councillors. We have been, in the wake of the most recent events, we have been meeting with people simply to give them information, as we've given you. A lot of that information is not around, it's very much the same narrative as we've had for the last couple of years of around no significant infrastructure solutions to these problems. And so I'll leave it to Mace to sort of answer the question around, further opportunities beyond BAU. But, within BAU, we have, limited ability to cope with that. So we're really trying to work through the local boards at the moment to make sure that we're talking to everyone that we can find and just give them a message that is accurate and a message that sort of speaks to them having some information to deal with their own resiliency.
Just to follow on, Mr. Chairman, thanks, Councillor Hills. It does provide an opportunity to remind our communities, individual homeowners, how to be prepared and resilient. And so I did notice, just in terms of some of our work with insurance companies, that in 2022, when people, before they buy a property, and there's other information here too, but 55% were undertaking checks around hazards, and that's increased to 89% now. So that's perhaps emblematic of the experience that homeowners and communities have had. And then secondly, for those prepared for weather and other natural events, has risen from 40% to 57%. So there's still work to do there. So I think my point is, that's a good question, Councillor Hills, and we do have to focus on, firstly, responsible development, and that's around the plan change, strengthening the unitary plan, which is coming, and the National Climate Adaptation Programme, a resilient infrastructure approach in terms of stormwater, and adaptation with the high-risk areas, and how we provide information to those communities to be as resilient as they can personally and in their homes, and also starting to look at the benchmarking with particularly perhaps the UK, but other areas as well. What is the information we provide in terms of building materials that are more resilient when people do provide upgrades to their homes? So we do have an information role and working across Barry's directorate in terms of the way it's nested now with resilience and infrastructure, including building control. There's opportunities to have an integrated approach to the way we talk to communities, and communication, as Councillor Fletcher said, is critical in that integrated communication across everything that the council does. I hope that's helpful.
And that's really helpful. The other one is, and it probably won't help my anxiety because I just sit there and refresh things in the middle of the night, but we have really good data on the rainfall pinpointed. We have really good data on like the dam levels, things like that. But one thing it would help us, I think, because immediately people go, have Healthy Waters done all the hotspot checks? Have you cleared all the drains? And inevitably, I will talk to Frank on the shore, and he will tell me, yep, we've cleared them all, 320 or whatever it is, we've done X, Y, Z. Is there any way to get a bit of that in an open data form so we can, I know that sounds bizarre, but actually if I could go to a thing and the contractors have gone, click, all 200 hotspots have been emptied, and I can confidently go, hey everyone, storm's approaching, because I know it's done, it is done, but of course what people see is the aftermath of a flood event which has pushed all the debris from everywhere, people's roofs, people's driveways, back into it would just give people that little bit more understanding because of course they see a covered grate, but we can't go to all 98,000 catch pits before a storm. But we do all the trouble spots that we believe are dangerous. And then, of course, AT does the sweeps a few weeks later after autumn or whatever it is. But how do we tell that story a bit? Because we're going to continue to get, and I saw the Wesley Mount Roskill comments too, oh, nothing was done. And I'm not saying it should be a defence, but it would help people feel like, okay, there is a system that does kick in. Because I know there is, because I've been out with Frank and seen it in action, and it's pretty significant what happens across the city in those weeks before a flood, or the week before.
Councillor, it's a great question. I think the shortest, easiest answer to that is yes, probably. There's a way. Can I suggest that we're already making moves down that path ourselves? And by that I mean that we have a number of initiatives where these hotspots are being monitored by AI. So that effectively gives us a live measure of blockage at any given time. So there are opportunities, what you're talking about is feeding operational data from the business out to the public, and possibly that's a little trickier, but in terms of data around networks that's coming in all the time, I think there's opportunity there to give people confidence around, degree of blockage. So yes, in answer to your question, I think it's possible.
And very last question, just Mace, we had another meeting in Milford on Sunday, and I know we've passed the policy around the unused land, but look, in Milford they're going to have 200 sites, pretty close proximity. People are getting very concerned and nervous. What is it going to just look like construction sites everywhere? What is the kind of middle benchmark for the next few years? Is it going to be grass with a fence around? What is the treatment? I know every site's different, but what does somewhere like Milford, who will have a significant amount of it, what does that look to them? Will it just be what was left under the base of the house? What is your kind of expectation within budget? What can I tell people in an easy way? Well, I guess it's not easy, but...
Thanks, Councillor Hills, and we'll get this out more generally about what's happening in different areas, but appreciate the example. Our approach is to grass those areas, get back to a remediation where they are grassed and can easily be maintained. There may be in some locations, concrete platforms left, but where we can remove that easily and affordably, we will do that. We also have interim use guidelines for interim use, and I emphasise interim in terms of allowing some activation of those sites through time, and that could be for some commercial uses where it's appropriate, recreational uses, community use as well. So that's what the expectation should be from community.
Okay, thank you. Lotu.
Kia ora. I just wanted to, commend you both and the whole team for the work that you've done, especially when you've come out to our communities and spoken to them, and the amazing work that's going on in Mangere. And even better to hear that it might be finished in 12 months, which is faster than was predicted. But, we'll cross all our fingers and all of our toes that does happen. I just was going to ask about the recent training, the Manaki, exercise Manaki. Are you able to comment about that, or is that more for AEM? And I was just...
It's more curricular for Auckland Emergency Management, but happy to get them to contact you, Councillor.
Okay, awesome. Then just that good comment. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thanks, Lotu. Julie.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the briefing that you did for Puketapa. I understand you've done, which that's why Chris and I missed the funnest 90 minutes of last week's governing body. And I understand you've done some briefing with some of the Albert Eden local board members as well on what happened at Easter, which, particularly hard in our ward. As a sort of, I guess, a follow-up to that a little bit is, in sort of building on where Desley was going, I think part of the problem we have is that there is now this expectation that my house flooded, therefore I buy it as an option. And we did have some discussion immediately after those Easter floods. I talked to the CEO directly, and I know we were talking about getting out some clear comms about that. I don't know if that comes from the Recovery Office or what, But are we still looking at doing that? Are we speaking more directly to people who were directly impacted again, and sort of not necessarily doing some more wholesale stuff? Where is that sitting?
Thanks, Councillor Perry. It has been more of a one-on-one, but I'm
Yeah.
happy to talk to Diane about how we might communicate that more broadly, so we're being consistent.
Thanks. And obviously one of the things that has come up a bit has been people who did not opt into categorisation or did not accept a buyout offer for whatever reason, many of them very legitimate reasons. The fact that unfortunately the scheme is closed, and being able to be quite clear about that. Is that something that, how are those conversations going, I guess? Certainly the ones I've been involved in have been going quite poorly in terms of people are upset, which I understand.
Yes, as you're aware, this was a one-time scheme. We have, or the Chief Executive had written to the Chief Executive of the Cyclone Recovery Unit, who consulted with ministers, particularly the Minister of Finance and Minister of Emergency Management and Recovery. We had a very clear message back about no further funding was available in this scheme, but the shift of funding around so that we could increase the buyouts up to 1,200, which 1,215. We're at 1,197 at present.
Sorry, could you just speak up a little bit? Just a bit
My
hard.
apologies.
Yeah, thank you.
So we have taken that approach with the Crown has moved funding around so that we can give more people relief than the original estimates. But we are communicating that more generally to people. But the individual conversations through our navigators are challenging for people and how we can help them through those issues and give them relief, including continuing to support them with their insurance companies, those typical supports to make sure that they've got the right support from agencies responsible.
Yeah, and so one of the things I'm thinking about in terms of what could be more productive, well, productive is the wrong word, what could be some ways to have some of those conversations where the door has unfortunately closed for people, is being able to talk to them about, well, here are the sites in your neighbourhood that we are purchasing. This is what they will look like over the next little while, and the help that those sites might offer. And so I understand that there might be some conversations with local boards happening later in June, is that correct? About where the sites might be and how that might play out. Because I think when I've been having conversations with people, sometimes saying to them, look, I know you have missed out, unfortunately, but as you're aware, we've purchased your neighbour's property. This is how that might help with your property, even though you're not eligible for a buyout.
I think there's two things there, Councillor Perry. Yes, we are having workshops with the impacted local boards through June, and meeting with the chairs on Monday to give them an update. But also, I think, thinking of Healthy Waters, they have a really strong program around continued maintenance and what they can do tactically to improve situations, particularly for things like overland flow paths, to ensure they're not causing a real nuisance. So there are still some tactical improvements we can make in the stormwater network that can make a real difference, as well as those properties removed will provide some improved stormwater hydrology as well. But it is a fraught situation, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so with those conversations with local boards and potentially some of those community conversations too, is there going to be an ability to look at whether we can prioritise using that local information, some of the Healthy Waters work or some of the site clearances? Is that going to be something that's possible, and if not, is it something we can look at making possible? I think, again, for those people who have missed out on coming into categorisation, those are things that will help them to feel, okay, I missed my window, but council is doing something that is going to help my situation.
I think the short answer is yes, Councillor Ferry. We have identified those priority areas and we'll continue to focus on those areas so that they have good information and understand and have hope, quite frankly, about what's in the future.
That's the word, right? Hope, yeah, is giving people hope that, yeah, that's going to work. Thank you. So, further to Councillor Hill's point about that hotspot work and making that visible, I think that would be incredibly helpful. One of the other things that would be helpful there would be some framing too about, and we need to get the words right on this, and these are not the right words. Council's doing our part. We've cleared this culvert. Please, can you make sure that the wood that you have loose on your property, for example, in the case of that culvert, is secured. So, when we're doing the comms around, hey, we've storm's coming, we've cleared these hotspot culverts. This is your part of that picture. Is that something we can get better at?
Councillor, our aspirations are to have a much more live point of reference for people so that we can give them an understanding of all this, effectively to bring all our data to bear and sort of in the public realm. So absolutely all of this I think is something we've already kind of looked on in terms of just to add some nuance to that. I think telling people the location of a hotspot is probably not particularly what matters to them. What matters is whether their property is affected by that.
Yeah.
And so some of what we're looking at is how do we indicate, for example, if our data shows us we do have a blocked culvert, we need to understand the area of influence for that, and we show people that, because it's not the culvert per se that's the problem, it's their risk that we're trying to give them an indication of.
Yeah.
But kia ora, I take all of that on board.
Yeah, thanks.
Just to follow up, Councillor Ferry, I think there has been some direct campaign, that have been direct and there will be direct campaigns about taking responsibility on your property to avoid nuisance to others of material washing into important infrastructure that's going to cause a nuisance downstream if that occurs. So that occurred, I know, in Councillor Henderson and Councillor Turner's neck of the woods, and in fact in the Roskill area as well, where there's really limited things we can do in those catchments.
Cool. I do have a bunch more questions, but I'm going to just ask one more because I'm aware of time, Chair. And it's really about following up on Councillor Hill's questions about what the sites are going to look like when we do the clearances, and how we're thinking there about, I know we've got the future land use staff, but how we're thinking there in the short term about the interaction with neighbouring sites where something in particular of parish in my area where there's a whole lot of KO sites as well, and KO have cleared to a particular standard, and our standard may not be the same as theirs, or where the land is adjacent to a park. Are we thinking about those interactions, because community expectation about what might, why have you fenced that off when it's next to the park, those kinds of things, are we thinking that stuff through and talking with KO in particular or other major landowners who have vacant sites or construction sites next door?
Thanks, Councillor Ferry. Yes, so we are thinking about the context of those sites and ensuring the context is fit for purpose for the neighbouring sites, and where there are other institutional landowners, we are discussing that with them so we have a consistent approach. But because this will be, as you're aware from the policy discussion, a 10-year program. It's not a short program. And as I said, the interim use guidelines will allow activation of some of those sites as well, so that we don't have nuisance occurring at times, public nuisance.
Thank you both. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. No more questions. Thanks, Nick. Oh, no. A bit like when you were using your Rutherford scattering equipment. So thank you, Mace. Thank you, Nick. Comments. Alf, then Desley.
To you both and Nick, I just want to acknowledge the 11th of April with the Sotuni with Te Akatai Waiuhua. Also, not only the attendance of the Recovery Office, but also Healthy Waters for Te Ararata and Haranea. Just want to acknowledge the people around this table for your support in regards to the Blue-Green project. So it was attended by the Mayor, and he ended up cutting the ribbon, but also doing did the sod turning, and had the MP from Māngere Lemonga, Lydia Sosene, Taua Nu'u, Nick Bakulich, and in particular we had the staff there that are doing the mahi now. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, Nick, you, Healthy Waters, Elizabeth Johnson, because I know there's going to be disruptions, and I've said this around the table, but I've contacted Leighton, and there are so many people interested as to the traffic management around there. But thank you so much for your support and the others, and also to our Tongan Church. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Thank you. Desley.
Yeah, kia ora, Alf. That was lovely. I also just want to voice my thanks to you both and your team for the amazing work you're going to do. I know that sort of the questions have morphed more into outside your brief, i.e., the recovery office was set up in a response to the 2023 events, but you're kind of almost perceived as the go-to place for anything happening after that. And there's no doubt in my mind that there are a number of our residents and ratepayers in our fine city that do feel a bit nervous every time they see a heavy rain warning. And I've got to put myself in that category, actually, and there was nothing that happened to my house. So I think, without doubt, the weather is certainly focusing a lot of people, and there's a lot of, as I said, perhaps tension is the word I'm looking for when they see bad weather. I want to hone my comments, though, on item 23 in the report, and that is just the fact that you are getting into a really good place with the removal of homes, right? And I just want to alert my colleagues to the fact that I was in Muriwai not too long ago, and they put up a community memorial made up of bits and pieces of the homes that had been removed. There were things like tap fittings, sinks, letterboxes, tiles, etc., and made a memorial in the community for to remember that the anniversary weekend. That was a lovely thing to do, and I want to thank all parts of council who helped contribute to that. But the purpose of me bringing that up today was to listen to the people who had intolerable risk to life and who'd lost their homes, to listen to them talk about our navigators and the people who had personally interacted with the families in such a warm and heartfelt way. So to you both, I hope you pass that message on, because at the end of the day, if there is a cloud, a silver lining under the cloud, that is the fact that people-to-people interaction do help considerably in times of trial, for want of a better word. And your people have been outstanding, not just at the event, but obviously touching base ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And it's not just Muriwai, it's all the places, Mangere, all the places throughout the Rohu, throughout the region that have been affected. So please pass that on. Congratulations on the work that you're doing. I know that you'll probably get there a little bit ahead of time, and that's a huge credit to you and the powerful team behind you both. Thank you.
Thank you, Desley. Any other comments? None. I'll just finish. So, the recovery is the fourth R of the 4 Rs, and we've heard a little bit today about how we give information to people and stuff, and the first 2 Rs are readiness and reduction. And so there's an old saying about when you give a man a fish, he'll feed himself for a day, and you teach him to fish and he'll feed himself for life. And that's a little bit about, in my view, what we tell people and the messages that we should be giving. And so when we get an event like the Easter one, the messaging we should be is directing them where to look for information. Because the minute you don't answer your phone or you don't put a message up, people find there's a void. And so they're looking in the wrong place for information. And so I think we have a responsibility as elected reps to actually make sure that we are directing people in the right way to find their information for themselves. The alternative, emergency managers and management, is that you are able to look after yourself for the first 3 days. That's getting spread out now because the ability to actually look after or people to get there to help is longer. So I just really urge us to, when we have events like that and we talk about them here, that we're actually giving people the right message, that it is how they look after themselves, because they stop looking to us for that information, and when we aren't there to give it to them, that's when they get into strife. So that would be my one and only little plea. So again, thank you, team, for that. There's no more comment, so I'll put it, those in favour say aye. And against, carried. Next item is the I, is a status of action decision, so Morris is moving that. And Richard is second. Is there any discussion? Oh, we'll get to item 12. So no questions. Those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Item 12 is a summary of Transport and Resilience Committee information memoranda and briefings. Someone like to move? Thank you, Lotu. Thank you, Alf. You have a question, Desley.
Yeah, just a quick, I've given Barry a bit of a heads up. So I didn't know whether to answer it at this time or earlier, but in my capacity as CRL joint sponsor and representative for council, there's a memo on the agenda about, and I won't call it Project K, I'll call it Karangaha Happy Station Precincts Integration Project, and we heard about it at public input today. Will the Mercury Lane cross street situation be sorted in time that works can actually be completed for when CRL opens in 2026? Because time is running short before opening and the street works do seem to take a long time to deliver.
Through the chair, from the teams who are involved in that, the answer is yes.
Perfect, thank you.
It's the first time anyone's ever asked a question for that item. Well done. Okay, it's been moved to second. Those in favour say aye. And against, carried. There's no extraordinary business, and so we close the meeting officially. Thank you very much, everyone. Have an enjoyable weekend, even if it is a bit wet.
I'm